thought we'd take some time today and do a little bit more work on basic hammer forging. We're going to do a couple of different ways of punching an eye, same size stock as we did before. But today I thought we'd work in the coal forge. No big reason. I typically work in a gas forge because I do production work. But today I just felt like using the coal forge, or more to the point, I did not feel like listening to the roar of the gas forge because it gets really annoying, and I'd just like to have a more peaceful day in the shop, and you might like to have a more peaceful video. So our goal is still the same. That is to put an eye in the material that will take a handle and then forge the rest of the hammer without deforming the eye. Our first hammer, we used this punch, a flat bottom punched, and we pre-drilled a hole on either side. I would suggest going back and watching that video if you did not watch the video on the first hammer making video. And you can see how we did that. That's still a real good, accurate way to do it, but not everybody has a drill press, or not everybody wants to take the step of pre-drilling. So we have two different kinds of punches that we're going to use today. Both of these will accomplish the same thing in the end, just a little bit different way of getting there. These are both made from the same material as this punch, which was a piece of sucker rod, and they're both made the same way except for the final treatment of what you do with the drawn out end. So again, if you don't remember how we did this, or you didn't watch that video, I would go back and watch the video on forging the hammer eye punch and drift, and how to harden and heat treat unknown salvage steels. The first punch we're going to use, I believe, is a design that was made popular by Brian Brazil. I don't know that it was his design exactly, but he's the first person I saw use a punch like this. And I don't know if you can see that. It comes to a little bit of a diamond shape, and it's sharp on the edges. So it's somewhere between a chisel and a punch. It is not a slitting chisel. It is going to end up punching out a slug. The other punch we're going to use is a simple round punch. So our material is the same 1¼ inch square bar, 1 3/8 square bar, sorry, and it's about 8 inches long. It's a little bit short, and I've marked a center roll of punch marks at the center, and I'll explain why I'm doing that later. And I've marked a center punch mark on two faces exactly opposite, and then at 90 degrees on the other side. And what we're making here is two hammers simultaneously, so this will all make sense as we go on why I'm punching the eyes in different planes and why I've left it connected. And that will help make two different styles of hammer and help make the peen a little bit easier by forging it in the middle of the two hammer heads. But that'll all be explained as we get there. So let's put this in the fire and get it hot. This is going to take a little while to get hot. It's a pretty big bar, so we're going to have to be patient. It's actually one thing that's nice about the gas forge is you can put this in and you can go cut materials for the next project, get your tools ready, do some other things. The coal fire you need to maintain a little bit. If you're paying attention when we lit the fire, you might have noticed that I actually used charcoal to start the fire. Charcoal in itself is an excellent forge fuel, and one I actually prefer over coal, but I have about a ton of coal out in the yard that I would like to get used up, so we're going to use it while I continue to make charcoal, and we'll cover charcoal making in a future video. Speaking of other videos, I get the impression that people really don't like free stuff, because the giveaway video got very little attention, and the safety videos got even less attention. So apparently you don't need me to preach to you about safety, and I'll try to do that very little or do it only as part of little tips as part of other videos. And the Blacksmith Challenge video didn't get a whole lot of attention, which surprises me. I thought that was a good way to challenge people's creativity. We actually lost subscribers over those last 3 videos, so we'll try not to do that again. We'll try to stick with more actual forging projects. And hopefully that's what you want to see. Now I have the center punch mark where I want to make my eye, assuming I can find it again hot, which is always a problem. And I want to just deepen that mark so it is easier to find with the end of my punch. I want to do that on both sides. And I'll do that when we go to the round punch as well. So we're going to start with the Brian Brazil style punch with the center of the little diamond bit right in the center of that punch mark, which is now quite easy to find. Do a couple of blows, turn it around. Taking the punch out after every blow does help keep the punch cool, but it pays to have a can of water. By turning this around regularly, we eliminate any error. If our punches aren't standing straight up and down, we're probably making the same error every time. So when we turn it around, it cancels that error out. I'll be able to work faster once I get a good hole established. But I'm still checking it. So you can see we're starting to get a good hole. Getting a little bit more aggressive with it now. I'm going to go about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through from the first side. You can certainly flip it over and back and forth, but when you're working by yourself and don't have a pair of tongs to help flip it side to side, that gets a little harder. Remember to keep cooling the punch. So we're getting quite a bit deeper, and you can see it's starting to swell out a little bit on the sides of the eye, which I like. So back in the fire. It's nice not having to listen to that roaring gas forge. So I'm on the other side. I'm a hair off there, so by checking it quickly, that's easy to fix. We're going to go most of the way through from this side, which should separate that slug, or biscuit as it is properly called. Keep turning, keep cooling the punch. Yeah, it looks like time to get this hot again. That feels like we may have knocked the slug loose. This has suddenly felt like it went a lot deeper, a lot faster. So let's flip it over and see what happens here. I'm going to come over the hardy hole. And see if we punch anything out. It's just almost ready to come out. I actually got that punch all the way up to a glowing heat, so I'm going to let that cool down a little bit. I don't want to quench it at a red heat, I might make it brittle. I'm actually putting it in an anti-seize punch lube. So I got a little bit eager and didn't cool my punch like I should. Not the end of the world. If it ends up getting soft, you can always reharden and temper. Yep, I think we're going to have to reheat it one more time to get that out. But it's just almost loose. You can see right there is the biscuit just about to come out. Yeah, I think I saw the majority of the slug fall free. Sometimes there's just a little bit that doesn't want to give up. And it's usually just a matter of breaking it off. So there is our punched eye. I can't even find the rest of that slug, but you see there's hardly any material lost doing it this way. So that's an advantage over the drill method, as you salvage an ounce or less of material, not a big deal. Just another little bit of rag there. So, nice eye, nicely centered, straight. This end is ready to turn into a hammer. And we'll just go ahead and do that real quick. I want to start by doing just a little drifting to kind of refine that hole. I'll work over the hardy hole, so I've got a place to drive the drift. Work both sides. If you hammer the sides a little bit, it's easier to get the drift back out. Flip it over if you still have enough heat. If not, get it hot. So we're starting to get the eye drifted. I'm going to go ahead and forge out the face end, put a little bit of a taper on it just because I like it. It doesn't need it. It's a perfectly usable hammer without it. So I just want to lightly draw a taper on this, just to make it look more graceful. And I want to chamfer the edges, just put a little bit of a flat, and I take that back to about the center of the eye. So I'm taking that back to right about here is where the chamfer ends. Yeah, that has deformed our eye a little bit, so we're going to have to drift again. That's no big deal. But I'm going to turn it around. We're going to do the other end. And we are going to start this one just like we did the other one, but we're 90 degrees off. So we want to find that center punch mark. Well, if it doesn't want to be found, it doesn't want to be found. Let me look on the other side. Here's so we want to deepen that center punch mark, and even a little deeper on this side, to the point that we're doing just a little punching with the center punch. A good deep punch mark. If you had a big enough center punch, you could probably punch all the way through with that, just like you did with the diamond shaped punch. So we're just punching a round hole in this. Not going to look at all like a hammer eye, but I promise you it will work. Other than that, same procedure. Rotate it often, get the punch out of there often, and keep the punch cool. And when it starts to cool off too much, get it back in the fire. That older glove is wearing a little thin, so I got a fresh one out. Again, we want to go about 2/3, 3/4, most of the way through anyways. And then we can start working from the back side. And if all your center punch marks were right, these will connect. If your layout's bad, it doesn't work so well. The flame you're seeing is from the punch lube. Helps keep the punch from getting stuck. Yeah, yep, there we go. So that's got a hole, a nice round hole all the way through it. And that little thing there is all the material we've taken out. So very little material comes out of that hole. One of the big advantages of hot punching holes over machined holes. The stuff I'm putting on the punch is a compound sold by Quick and Dirty Tool Company, and no, they aren't paying me to advertise their product. I bought 2 cans of this 6 or 8 months ago, and I'm still on the first can. I'm really impressed with how long it's holding up and how well it works. So the next trick here, well, not really a trick, the next job is to enlarge the round eye that we have. And we're going to work from both sides, keep things even. And keep the punch cool. You notice it gets red hot. So there's certainly not much temper left in that punch. I've got 4.5 inches of round punch. So I can get it all the way up into here, where it's 3/4 of an inch in diameter if I want to. There's no color left in that punch, so I feel okay cooling it now. So the fact that that punch can get red hot is a good argument for not even bothering to harden and temper it too seriously. I think it's still better to do that, but I'm not sure that I can justify it. As long as you're using a good tough steel, they'll still survive pretty well. An S7 or an H13 will do better at that and actually stays hard when it starts to pick up some color, but they are much harder steels to work with. You can also have a separate round drift that you just know is going to get hot, and then you don't damage your punch. Now we'll keep cooling that off just a little bit more aggressively so we don't get it that hot again. So that eye was punched much faster, but the drifting round is going to take considerably more time because it's got a lot more material to move. But I promise you this will work out into an oval eye. You can also help move some material by putting the punch in, hammering just a little bit. Don't do too much of that though, because you're going to deform your way too hot punch. That draws that eye out a little bit lengthwise, and helps get a little more material so you can keep drifting the round. Hopefully that makes sense. You can even draw that out a little bit with the peen. So if you haven't figured it out yet, we're just using a round punch because a lot of times that's all you have. So we're just getting a bigger and bigger round hole, and that's going to bulge, and when we flatten the sides of the hammer out, it'll flatten out and make an oval. This round punch technique is one I like for little hammers. I'm finding that it's quite a bit of work for this hammer, and this is still not a very big hammer. This is a pound-and-a-half-ish hammer or something, probably. But the eye is still stretching, so this is still a completely usable technique. And if you have a power hammer or press, this would go quite quickly. I think we're about as far as I'm going to go with this. It's a pretty good size eye, and we'll drift it a little bit with the regular drift. So the next step is, let's see if we can make that kind of oval. So we have a round eye that we want to be oval. And to start with, that's as simple as just starting to forge in the edges. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and start drawing out the end of the hammer, just like we did the other side. Since I'm already forging it in these on the sides, it's a good time to start stretching that eye a little bit. The drift is exactly the same. Our techniques in dealing with drifting at this point are really all the same. See, that eye is turning oval, and it'll be the same basic size and shape as every other hammer eye we've done. Just a different approach. So you can see we're getting there. Until the hammer's finished, I think we are pretty much through drifting that eye. So we will probably deform it again. Clean this up a little bit. You don't want to try and do any serious forging at this low of a heat. You take a real chance on cracking that tool steel. It's 4140. But you can kind of clean it up and smooth it at this heat. So, what's next? Now remember, we got two hammers. Eyes going opposite directions. And we have a row of center punch marks across the middle where they're really hard to find. Although you could pretty well guess center on this if you can't find your marks. And I think we'll be able to find them. So the next thing is to draw out the peens, and we're going to do that simultaneously. Remember, our other hammer, things kind of overlap and leave you a lot of grinding. If we set up the peens on these hammers both at the same time by forging between the eyes, we're going to end up with less likelihood of that. We'll still have to finish them after we cut them apart, though. We're going to work under the guillotine tool, the smithing magician. This just barely fits. Just to start establishing that. Make sure you're centered. Once you get a little bit of a groove, you should be able to find it again. So that's just a start. All I'm really doing at this point is marking it. One of the things about working in a coal fire is occasionally you got to stop and clean it. You get these nasty clinkers in there. That's all the junk, the scale that burns off the piece, impurities in the coal. That stuff robs your fire of heat and offers absolutely no heat value. Doesn't do anything to help you forge. If you're forge welding, it's likely to be the thing that makes it impossible to forge weld. So by doing this, I'll be able to get a nice high heat to do that. Boy, I can't believe how much there is. And I'm using the better coal today. I've got some that really has bad clinkers in it. Another reason I kind of like charcoal for the forge. So you got to kind of rebuild the fire up now. And if you get a little bit of fresh coal in there when you do that, it's going to smoke. We get a much better heat after cleaning out the fire. Now doing this under a hydraulic press, fly press, power hammer with drawing dies is going to be way faster than the guillotine tool. Another option, if you have somebody to swing a hammer for you, would be a matching set of top and bottom fullers with a nice big radius on them, so you can get in there and have somebody swing a big sledgehammer to strike for you. I realize most beginners don't have that luxury, so, and in fact I don't in the shop today either. I don't have anybody to swing a hammer, so it's all up to me. So in the interest of not making this into an hour-long video, I'm going to go ahead and use the power hammer. It's the 25-pound Little Giant. You can see that's starting to look more cross-peen-like. So a power hammer is a nice thing in the shop if you can afford one. Well, sorry to go to the power hammer there, but I didn't figure you really wanted to watch me do that for the next 20 minutes. But it's a perfectly valid way to do it. Now you can see this is still fairly thick through the middle, but there'll be a lot less drawing down to clean that peen up, and you want a fairly heavy peen anyways. So I'm going to let this normalize while I go have lunch. Then I'll come back and I'll cut it in half, and you can see we have a straight peen hammer and a cross peen hammer. So we're going to get two different hammers out of this. If you punch the eye on the same sides, you get two cross peen hammers or two straight peen hammers. But this does save some time at the grinder if you can do it this way. So we're going to put this back in the fire just to cool. I'll let the fire just kind of go out normally. And that hammer will still be hot when we come back for lunch, but it won't be fully annealed, it'll just be normalized. Two hammers. So we've got our two hammer heads. They were connected. They've been cut apart. The peen is nice and clean at this point, so it's going to be real easy to finish forging that and grind it. There'll be a lot less grinding involved on that end. So we're going to do that, clean that up, touch up the striking end just a little bit, re-drift it one last time. But really all of that is exactly like the previous hammer video. So again, if you haven't watched it, I strongly encourage you to go back and watching Forging the Cross Peen Hammer. That's where we will address most of these issues, as well as hardening, tempering, final grinding, and hanging it on a handle. I'm going to go ahead and do one of these now just because we're here, but I probably won't finish it, and I'm not going to go through the hardening, tempering, grinding process all over again. That's all there in the other video. I'll try to put a link right there so you can see it. And let's get back to work. advantage the propane forge has over the coal fire is that I could put both of these in and work them alternately, one heating and one being forged. But in the coal fire, there's a real risk of burning this if you leave it and aren't paying attention to it while it's in the fire. So I'd rather just work one at a time in the coal fire. Then we want to leave that peen fairly broad. They work better that way. And you can always grind it to a sharper radius, but you're not putting metal back on very easily. Getting very close. Just trying to get it all smoothed up at this point. Nice clean bevels on the edge just to relieve the edge, make it a little bit more friendly to work with. Make sure the sides are flat, straight. Take all the twists out if there's twists. And that's pretty much all I'll do to the peen end. I'll dress off the face just a little bit more, just to clean it up. And this is just cleaning up the struck end a little bit, make it look nicer. There's definitely going to be some grinding involved. That's okay, I expect that. We'll do one more heat and drift that one more time, and we will be done with this hammer. That's not where I meant to put that. So that's all I'm going to do in that one for now. I'm going to anneal it, then I'm going to grind it, harden it, temper it, put a handle on it. But all those things are covered in the previous video, like I mentioned before. So take a look at that. In the meantime, get out to the shop and make something. Stay safe. Wear your safety glasses. Give a thumbs up to this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. Share the videos with your friends. And we'll see you later.